Welcome, everyone. And I know that we'll have many more people begin to join us. This is our third time together. Myself and Dr. Rachel Rogers-Ard birthed this notion of we gonna be all right. And we, this week I'll say that when we shared out and reminded our community that we were going to be holding these spaces for ourselves, we actually received a message from someone who's not all right. Someone who felt that the language that we use to speak colloquially uh, about needing to ground down in what's familiar and engaged in what is relevant culturally, it felt too real, perhaps. And I was particularly distraught because of the ways that my staff had to face into that and experience that racism, which was what it was. And it reminded me all, yeah. And it reminded me all too well about why it's so important to be unapologetically forward in the mission to be radically and transformatively inclusive of everyone, of every single one. But it also reminded me of the ways that in the context of our leadership, and I take that as an affront to my particular Black woman's leadership, that in the context of our leadership, that there will be folks who see your leadership, your pursuit of a high idea, your intention to really move in a new and a different direction, that would include all, that there is fear there. I've been reading The Sum of Us by Heather McGhee. Not sure if you've heard of this book, but Dr. McGhee is an economist, and book came out this spring. You're probably wondering when I have time to read, and I do too. But I do, I love to read. I'm a pretty voracious reader. And The Sum of Us is a book about looking economically at the ways that racism negatively impacts folks of color, but also negatively impacts white people, particularly poor white people, and the ways that various political machines and ideologies rob people of their full opportunity to participate in this democracy, take away an individual's ability to fully engage in all the benefits of everything that we are all worthy and deserving of, and does so by revving up the notion of exclusion and not wanting to be like them, that other. And I thought about that, particularly with this person who felt it necessary to send a note to let us know that our use of African-American colloquialisms and vernacular in the announcement of this piece, this program, We're Gonna Be All Right, which we know and we've shared previously, is the language of Poet Laureate Kendrick Lamar, a master of letters in this country, actually, who is a Black man from Los Angeles, California. That it is so critical to think about the ways in which this particular person robbed herself of an opportunity to join in a community, to grapple with whatever it is that has stressed or, strained her in such a way that other people joining and engaging one another in this way bothered her. And the ways that we wanted to talk about it bothered her. So I want to sit that out there and let you just sort of hold that, because I think that while we hold a special sort of incubator space, a type of, what would I call it? A type of bubble. There are many, many, many folks who are really struggling with what it means for you to be all right, for you to be all right in a radically inclusive way. There's something about that that is threatening. And that's hurtful and it's sad, but we will not be defeated by that. And I want you to understand that there's power. And sometimes in watching this wave of power generate up and grow and become something strong and magnificent, that is threatening to a status quo that excluded everyone from being all right. So I open today with those words because I do think that it's important for us to remain tethered to the reality of our condition and also to the challenges that folks have with the fact that we are, as a nation, as a country, and as a world, moving in the direction of our collective lightness and our collective freedom. And that's a beautiful place to go. But it does require that we take care of ourselves in doing so, that we keep ourselves all right, because there is challenge in the world out there in terms of doing that work. Rachel, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I wonder if there's anything that you'd like to say to our group. I know that we continue to host this out of the School of Education at Mills, but we really did build this together. And I was so appreciative of the ways that you and I checked on each other to make sure that we were all right when we started this work. And it just feels so incredibly important that I always hold you side by side, hand in hand, virtually, as my sister and as my colleague. Anything that you'd like to add?
Well, first of all, that's so unbelievably wonderful. And thank you for that, because I need to be held. Hello, everyone. So good to see those who have been with us in some of our other spaces and those who are new to the space. Thank you for joining us. Those words were super powerful, Wendy. It was just amazing. It is always surprising and yet not when I hear of issues of folks silencing, particularly African-American people. And I am always concerned about the silencing, and yet it continues to happen. So you would think that I would not be surprised, and yet I find myself always surprised, right? So in this notion of being all right, just underscoring, first of all, the need to continue to have spaces of affinity, spaces where we can be, as Dr. Wendy said, unapologetically, authentically who we are with like-minded folks, so that we can get what we need to give us a little bit of inspiration, a little bit of peace, a little bit of rest, a little bit of courage to move forward. So in as much as we are holding these spaces, I also encourage all of you to find those spaces in your places, and also, or maybe to even host those spaces, because we do need to check in. We often say we're all right when we really truly are not. And if our pandemic, the multiple pandemics that we're facing, has taught us anything, it is the need to even be more aware of the ways in which our mental health and our emotional health and our spiritual health and our physical health are being affected by the things that we are dealing with. So I am extremely happy for this space. And then just wanting to underscore the necessity of being able to build the muscle. So when those attacks come, and they will, that we have the muscle to understand that that is that person's fear. I love the way that you expressed that, Dr. Wendy, that that's that person's fear, because the question becomes, what is it about this language that is bothering you? And I don't want you to answer it. I'm just saying that's a question that you might want to interrogate, because I am fine saying, I'm going to be all right. We're going to be all right. I am good with that. And what is it about me standing in my realness and my authenticity that is somehow threatening to you? So we want to be able to get those, like I call those building the muscle, right? Get those sinews and things that we need to do to build, so that when it comes, we can reach out to others and say, I know where this is coming from, and sort of put on our Teflon and not allow it to stick. Super happy to be here with all of you today.
Thank you so much for that, Rachel. So this conversation that Rachel and I cooked up centers the work and lives of educational leaders grappling with their realities of providing leadership in Bay Area schools predominantly, though we do sometimes have folks who join us from all across the country, and we don't turn anyone away. But providing leadership in schools, and the ways the challenges in their work are compounded by what's now been a 1 year, this was our anniversary this week, a 1 year health pandemic and racial endemic that we've continued to grapple with. With a nod to uplift, we center the complexity of the work of leading in contexts which we are all affected, while also attending to the ways our leaders are emboldened with competencies and capacities and communities of support and engagement that help them to ultimately know that though the times are difficult, you're going to be all right. There's hope. right? And we're not going to take that from anyone. So we have a really robust group of folks who have volunteered their time to hold space. I don't know that we're going to have the need for each group, but I want to introduce each person who offered their energy and their time, and we'll see where we land in terms of our group configurations. The first person is one of our beloved faculty members, Molly Freeman. Molly is in complex systems and distance learning from she got her PhD in complex systems and distance learning from the Union Institute. Her dissertation was Knowledge in a Learning Universe, Collaborative, Recursive, and Digital Examinations, examining patterns of integration of digital technologies in K through 12 and post-secondary schooling. She is the former chair of education and human development at Holy Names College, right up the hill, and where she helped to found the first weekend college for adult learners and was among the first to integrate digital technology into credential programs. Molly's professional experience includes preparing over 6,000 Silicon Valley K through 12 teachers to integrate the new technologies into their curricula and authoring numerous reports on K through 12 and post-secondary technology integration across the nation. For 10 years, she facilitated the Armenian Turkish Dialogue Group, Opening the Mountain. She works in the US and Armenia. We are very blessed to have Molly to be a part of our educational and our School of Education community. She's faculty member within our educational leadership department and teaches 21st century education in that space. So welcome, Molly, and thank you for being here.
Thank you.
I also want to turn our attention now to Dr. Priya Driscoll. She's the Associate Dean of the School of Education and professor in our school. She is also the chair of the Early Childhood Education Program Department. She received her PhD in developmental psychology from the University of Chicago in 2006. Starting then, she became a senior researcher for the Ounce of Prevention Fund, where she developed an intervention study focusing on language and social development for EduCare Chicago, an innovative Head Start and Early Head Start program. In 2009, she completed a National Institutes of Health postdoctoral fellowship in social and cultural foundations of child development at the University of California, Santa Cruz. She has been at Mills since 2009. Her main research focuses on the role of cultural and environmental experiences in young children's social, cognitive, and linguistic development. Similarly, she studies intergenerational heritage language and the role of culture in parents' experiences seeking bilingual education for their children. Dr. Driscoll's research on play has focused on international and intergenerational patterns in children's play, cultural differences in children's learning through observing others play, social justice and equity in children's play, and the role of play across the lifespan. Her research examines how children learn STEM concepts from play in museum spaces and other informal learning environments. Dr. Tomas Galgara is the department chair and professor of teacher education here at Mills. He teaches language development methods, research methods, trauma-informed leadership courses in Mills in our School of Education, where he's been teaching since 1996, if you can believe it. He obtained his PhD in education with an emphasis in language, literacy, and culture from Stanford University. In addition to teaching, he provides professional development to teachers, schools, and classroom and districts on language development, trauma, and newcomer students and classroom inquiry. His publications and research interests include pedagogy of teacher preparation for language development, teacher classroom research, documentation of teaching practice, and the role of information technology and social media on teacher and teacher education. His most recent research focuses on the development of pedagogical language knowledge among beginning teachers. Before Mills College, he was a Spanish bilingual teacher in the Oakland Unified School District. And my dear colleague, Dr. Rachel Rogers-Ard is a published author, adjunct professor, district administrator, and organizational development specialist with over 25 years experience preparing adults to lead and manage numerous workplaces and spaces. Rachel is specialized in coaching agency leaders to dismantle racist policies, practices, and procedures that threaten organizational health. Currently, she's the principal lead for Harvest Consulting, where she grows school district and business leaders through anti-racist development. She designs and facilitates customized training around leadership and bias, utilizing social emotional best practices as a certified Dare to Lead and the Leadership Challenge trainer. Rachelle's work showcases the necessity for organizational core values to drive employee retention and outcomes. As such, she challenges leaders to interrogate systemic racism and systems, and if they are to effectively lead across difference. Her own authentic leadership framework, which you can read in her most recent book, just came out about a year ago, provides guiding questions for personal reflections toward inclusive leadership. She also leads the Grow Your Own Collective, a national organization dedicated to the recruitment, placement, and retention of teachers of color, and her latest publication, Black Educational Leadership from Silencing to Authenticity, details the journey of African American principles in racially oppressive systems, and is currently available on Amazon. So that is everyone that we have, or as they say with the New York Times, all the news fit to print. So really, really glad to have this just illustrious group of folks. We have seen a higher number of folks interested in and registering for this event than are actually here. And I believe the sunshine is to blame for that. And I'm actually really happy for it, because it means that perhaps people are not needing as much the spaces that we can hold around educational leadership challenges at the intersection of multiple pandemics. And or maybe just the sunshine is a way to take care of that too, and all to the good. So I would like to ask our participants a few questions to get a sense of how best to divide ourselves in groups. Would that be okay? All right, so we have, I think, about equal number of participants as we have facilitators. So there's a wealth here, and that's fine. I'm wondering if in the chat, if our participants can share whether or not you have a racial preference for the facilitator of your group. And I ask you to share that in the most open and just inclusive space, that you have an empowered choice that you can make, and we can make sure that we assign accordingly in ways that fit and feel good to you, right? So it's not about anything other than wanting to make sure that you get what you need from the things from what you wanted when you called into this space today. Is that okay? And what we'll do then with our administrators, Gabby and Ure, is maybe put folks into groups based on that. Is that helpful? Okay. 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 Gabby, you have a comment. Do you want to just share it out loud so that folks can Gabby has an idea.
Yes.
So go to Gabby when she has an idea.
As you know, we've been doing these for 3 different times, and we've had new learnings of Zoom. So recently, there's a new function where we can open out the breakout rooms, and as participants, you're able to choose which room you would like to go into. And there's already, I believe the facilitators are already in those rooms.
Okay.
And so you just need to choose where you would like to go.
And then maybe our facilitators, if there's no one in your room, you can stay on and join another group, or, as you please.
Okay. I think fully the value and the gift of affinity groups. Until I hosted one, I had never actually gone to one before. And that sharing in community, that sharing of similar experiences, that freedom to name our experiences, I think was really incredibly powerful. And I just want to really appreciate both Shahweh, Ivy, and Fleur who were in the group, and for sharing so much of themselves.
Okay. Yeah, that's powerful to hear you say that, in terms that you hadn't had the experience as a member, but then when you facilitated, you saw that benefit.
Wow, what a great way to end the week. Let me just first point to the obvious, that I'm, the single male figure in this group, and as such, in some ways that might seem, I don't know, different somehow, and it doesn't. It just sort of feels like part of the group, part of the community, and I feel so fortunate and so privileged to have been able to spend a lovely time with Melissa, talking about all kinds of common things and things that were different for each of us. This is special, and I hope that we'll find a way to continue this conversation in whatever way post-pandemic, because I think we're all going to rush back into life, and then we're going to forget to do some of the important work.
Right.
So yeah, thank you for organizing it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It is wonderful to to just take time for this really, really important space. And I need to say thank you to my group who were phenomenal. I mean, it's just something when people at one point, I think it was Lisa's daughter, said something to her and she reacted in a way that my mother reacted to me and that I have reacted to my children. And I was like, it's just universal, right? It was totally in that moment that I was like, this is what happens when people get in spaces of affinity, right? And so I just want to thank my group and I want to thank you, Dr. Williams, and thank Mills for continuing to make this space. And as a Mills alum, I am super appreciative of that as well. I think there are two things that just came up for me whenever I'm in spaces like this. And the first is the necessity of being authentic, of finding the space to be authentically, truly who you are. And if that's not happening for you within work, and you're having a hard time and you're feeling silence, like what are some of the things that you can do to create those spaces like these spaces, but then also encouraging you to think about, is that where you really want to give 80% of your life's force at a place where you are feeling silenced and not feeling seen and not feeling heard? Because the pandemic has shown us that life is indeed truly short. So really, really digging deep to make sure that we can show up in the vibrancy of who we are, wherever we are. We talked a little bit about code shifting. We talked about what does it mean to shift when you're in different places. But our goal has to be the fulfillment of and the embodiment of who we are at our core, right? And having the courage to show up with who that is, even in spaces that aren't created for us. And so in as much as we can have support systems so that we can show up in a way that allows us to be real and allows us to be authentic and show ourselves is really our way that we acknowledge our creator and that we are so real and having and not being fearful of the blowback from that. And I know that's really, really hard when folks are attacking us via email because we used, Kendrick Lamar. I get that. But even within that, right, how do we remain true to that? And one way to do that is to remember that Elizabeth Kubler-Ross says there's only two emotions, love and fear. And so every day I am choosing to live more in love and to live less in fear. And so when people send those emails, I understand that they're living in fear and I don't want to be part of that, right? I want to live and to move from a place of love. And that's another way that I honor the creator. So I am thankful so much for this time. Thankful I know all groups were great. I'm just saying my group was special too.
Okay.
And thank you so much, Dr. Williams. Your leadership at Mills, I've said this privately, but I'm of a certain age where I get to say what I want to publicly. Listen, when I was at Mills, I did not experience this. So I am so grateful for your leadership there and your continued courage to move and to shift and to push boundaries is amazing to see. And I just wanted to acknowledge you and to let you know that we see you and we appreciate you.
It is so good to be seen and heard, right? I appreciate you all and your affirmations for the space that this is. We will continue for as long as we can until we can't, right? And so that will definitely speak to in and around the need that we have. Thank you so much for spending your afternoon with us. I'm hopeful that whatever brought you into this Friday and however you came, particularly if it was with a bit of heaviness or stress or whatever the case may be, that you leave it in this Zoom call, and that when we log out and it magically goes away, that you can just kind of let it go and sail into your weekend and have some peace and some restoration. You deserve it. And we will see you when we see you. Thank you so much.